We initially said in the podcast that quoted material must be taken exactly as it is, word for word. And that is 99% of the time true. There are two exceptions that we will talk about and advocate and push you guys to use in order to help make your borrowed material fit even more smoothly into the body of your writing. You may adjust the tense and the pronoun person of your original. And you may cut stuff from the original that you're going to borrow in your own. The thing that you must maintain, though, is original meaning. You can't change the tense and the pronoun person and or taking out stuff if it changes the meaning of the quoted material. So let's explain. So you can change verb tense. So if the original text is for some reason, I do this, and your paper is written in the past tense, you can change the do to the past tense of did. And the way you do that is you write in the new tense you want to use, and you put the square brackets. This shows your reader that your original material has been changed, because the original material is shown because it has quotes, but that you are showing a change by putting in the square brackets. This doesn't change the meaning of the quote, therefore it is legit to do. All you're changing is tense. You're taking the original tense and modifying it slightly to make it fit more smoothly into the tense that your paper is in. Again, you do that by the square brackets. The other thing you may change is what we call pronoun case. Let's say the original text said something like, I did this. But since you are writing in the academic third-person voice and we want to eliminate first-person voice, maybe you change that original first person to third person to help it be more smooth in your own paper. So again, you have quotes around it to show that you're borrowing word for word, but then you use the square brackets to show the new reader that you have changed the pronoun person from the original. Again, you did not change meaning, you're just changing pronoun case. And so you can change I did this from an original to he did this by using the square brackets within the quotation marks from your original. The third modification you can make is the removal of unnecessary material. Sometimes you have an incredibly important long paragraph that you want to get into your paper, but you look at that and go, you know what? I don't need all of that information in my paper. I can pick a couple words here and there and put that into my paper and still make my point clear. So you have a bunch of different ways you could do that. The two we're going to talk about are here on this slide. So perhaps the first thing you can do is to take a chunk out of the original paragraph, frame that in your own writing, then reframe a new sentence with stuff later from that original paragraph. Make it 2 sentences, make it 3 sentences, make it whatever you need, but make it 2 distinct quotable material chunks. So that's often what students do. They might say something like, the author stated that, quote, the atom was not able to be split anymore. And then they would go on to say, but later in that same paragraph, the author also said, quotes, it was an important fact to discover, or something like that. So instead of taking a humongous block quote and quoting a paragraph that you only need a couple words from in their own paper, you can take from the beginning and then rewrite another sentence and quote from the end. That's awesome. The thing that might be a little bit new, and the thing we're talking about here, is you can quote the whole thing, but then use the ellipsis to show that you have cut out material. So what we mean is, perhaps you say, the author stated that, quote, the atom was the smallest material that could not be split, but, use the ellipsis then, it was an important discovery to make. End your quote, add your citation, and move on. So maybe we did not need everything between those 2 chunks. We only needed the idea that the atom was the smallest, but it was an important thing to discover. And so the ellipsis is the 3 periods separated by a space between each one. That lets your reader know that you as writer have taken out a chunk in the middle of these 2 quoted pieces of material. Again, though, the big warning is you cannot change the meaning of the quote because you take out an important word. You cannot write, he was an important person, yet the original was, he was not an important person. And just say, well, hey, I used the ellipsis, I just took out what I needed. Now, you can't change meaning, but you can cut out unnecessary material. So for example, Piggy became very agitated and worried at the breakdown of the island. Piggy wanted the conch to help restore order. He shouted at Ralph to give him the conch. He needed the conch to help the group. Citation, period. So for whatever reason, we have chosen to quote this long stretch of material in the framing that we have written. So we changed tense once, we changed pronoun case once, and we used the ellipsis there to show that shouted at Ralph something, 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 then eventually to give him the conch. For whatever reason, there was stuff in there that we just didn't need for our paper. We wanted to take it out. We could have quoted it into two separate areas, but this time we decided to quote the entire thing, but show us removing something just by using the ellipsis. Again, any changes we made in terms of tense or pronoun needed to be shown with the square brackets. So just in sum, there is an art and a science to quote integration. There's a bazillion different ways you can do any one quote. But, a couple things. Quotes can't stand on their own, they must be framed in our writing, and they must fit into complete sentences. We don't just place quote bombs in there. But ultimately, we can adjust them with square brackets and the ellipsis. If you have any questions, go ahead and bring those in the class. We'll get those answered. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.